Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tackle Productions. Today I back up being joined once again by Jimmy, Trevor, and like always, Fluff.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
What's up, people?
Was that Santa Claus?
Like always, just buttons down below. Feel free to click them. They're there for a reason. Maybe. I don't know. It's up to your imagination, I guess. Today's matchup is Trevor versus Jimmy. We have the SS3 reboot, if I'm correct, versus the what I'm now calling Skillless Finn. I mean, it's just the best way to describe this deck now, right?
I would call it Prepping for Fusion Finn because this match was kind of an outlier for the way this deck normally plays.
Prepping to Fusion works.
Yeah.
So, hope you all enjoy.
Talk about SS3 Reboot real quick, and then we'll get into Finn because I took a pretty long turn, so we can fit all that in there.
Yeah, so SS3 Goku kind of has I'd describe it as like an in-between Soul Striker and SS4 Vegeta, because it ramps like SS4 Vegeta, and it untaps energy like Soul Striker, in a way. The only difference is you untap going into their turn as opposed to when you want to on your turn, so it kind of like changes the way the deck plays. This version of the deck that I made is a lot less defensive than my previous versions, because I was like, I'm just going to throw a whole bunch of blue stuff in a deck and call it a day. And felt like that's kind of what I wanted to do with SS3 Son Goku, because it's just a great option for that, because you can tap out on your turn and still be fine.
Oh, for sure.
And in most set matchups.
And I apologize for the glare here. We had to set up in not our normal area, so the glare was pretty bad.
That's a full-on Dimension Magic glare.
Yeah, I know what's up. So this is a completely different take on Finn, where I am running a very, very minimal Finn package, and I kind of just replaced it with other black cards that were very strong, and then I also put in the Prepping for Fusion package, so that consists of Saiyan Scions, as you've seen, the 1-drop Xeno Skilluses, and then the 6-drop 30Ks that Xeno evolve on top of these Skilluses. It still is not exactly where I want it, but it can be very potent in particular matchups, especially against something like SS3 Reboot, where your life is a massive resource. Those first 4 life are such a big resource that I knew if I could pressure those life, it could possibly set you back. Which I know you're a good enough deck builder to build your deck in a way that you don't require those ramps. But I wanted to still try to minimize that. It did feel bad charging a secret ID there, because I didn't know if you were going to be a blue deck that was going to spam a boonies and go wide, or if you're going to be like a big boss monster deck. So it felt bad, but I liked the other cards in my hand.
Yeah, this version of it is kind of tall. It's like play one big boy a turn and hope they stick. Which I know when you play against Finn, you want to play barrier battle cards so that you can not get it sucked up by the leader, and you only have to deal with the 8-drop.
Yeah, Merichim's a very scary card, so seeing that go to the drop delighted me. Yeah, that's where your drop is. I always put my warp either above my deck or just below it, so it confuses me when people actually play the game correctly.
Yeah, I still have no clue which way is the correct way. I just instinctively place them above or below depending on how I'm feeling the day, apparently.
So this was pretty huge for me, opening 3 Scions, using 2 to board 2 Skilluses respectively, and then having another one to buff them all by 5k. It's an energy efficient play, but it's not a I'm blanking on the word I'm wanting to use here. It's not very common to open 3 Saiyan Scions. So this is not something that you can rely on a lot. And I think Bancroft gets the skillless Finn from this bit of gameplay here.
Am I wrong?
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, this right here is skillless Finn. It's not very common for to have 4 skilllesses on field at one point in time with another Saiyan Scions boarded.
Especially turn 2.
Yeah.
I find myself whenever I'm playing against like skillless packages recently, it's always been like using them purely for like Gogeta thwarting the darkness card, right? So I was like, oh, I should expect this, and then it did not do that. And I was just like, oh, you're going really wide, and it's starting to hurt. So I'm at 4 energy here, but unfortunately, I'm not seeing a unison, and I've played the best card in my hand. Is kind of where I'm at, which doesn't do me much good, but it does do at least a little bit of work going into this next turn, more than usual, especially after all the people tell me it's a bad card.
When you tapped the energy, I was like, okay, Baby Unison, why is he not going into Majin Buu here? And then you put Gohan on the field, and I'm like, okay, well, I think this is lose the game territory because this guy's about to go buck wild on me. Which I was actually a lot more scared of this card than I should have been. But after the game we did discuss, and you were like, yeah, it was the best card in my hand at the time. And I was like, damn, you scared the shit out of me, I'll tell you that much. So you were gracious enough to give me a Mechiorp to absorb. Usually I like to swing with my front side of the leader to get the draw. But I was scared that you would just combo off the Mechiorp and not give me the access to Awakening. So I went ahead and forego 1 draw just to be able to Awaken and then get my draws on the backside.
Yeah, and it was honestly like where I was looking at your field, and it was one of those situations in my head where I was looking at my hand and looking at your field and going, I'm gonna need to play something, otherwise I'm gonna lose anyway. So let's play this and see how the turn plays out.
For sure. So you mentioned that you expected like a Thwarting the Dark Empire. I do run that in this package, and that's usually what I go for. I usually go for boarding the Prepping for Fusions. That sets up my warp for thwarting, and then I run the 2-drop Overwhelm Toa to cycle those skilllesses back to my warp to continue pushing with fusions. But I saw the opportunity to go wide with the Scions, and that's why I took it here, where most of the time I am just pressuring with the big 30k bodies. Because the Goku Prepping for Fusion will cycle a skillless back to the battle area, which will give me more targets. The Vegeta is kind of lackluster. He does add skilllesses to my hand, which in some cases could be pretty decent, but most of the time I want to be seeing the Gokus, this guy particularly. So Xeno Evolve, send it to the warp. His auto triggers will play a skillless from the drop area or warp in rest mode, which will set up for future fusions. There's some times where I choose not to, just because I want to board a thwarting and I need the Goku and the warp. But this is a case where I didn't have it readily available.
Right. And these are these cards that I almost never see anybody actually play them, because I felt like every time these cards were used, they were used in Dark Broly, and they were purely just for filling up the warp and drop with high cost cards to use the leader ability.
Certainly.
So it's not something that I was familiar with actually playing against.
So to talk about that interaction there, you didn't have a unison to play that out, and you didn't have 5 energy to tap for it, which is odd for SS3 Goku, because Goku usually has a couple extra energy by this time. So I think that's just a case of playing by what you're used to the deck operating at.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty hard to warp more than 1 life when you take 3 damage turn 1.
In most cases, yes. So this Dark Imperial Scientist Toa has been one of like the MVPs to me. It's a Overwhelm 2, which is odd, and it's a 15k body. You will discard 1, draw 1, and then you'll buff a card by 5k. Which it can be huge, because right now I'm swinging for 25,000 on the leader with having 1 card under it, and then I have another 15k body to follow it up. And like I mentioned earlier, if you even have no cards in the drop and you activate a Thwarting after Xeno evolving, you will have 2 cards in your drop that you can just send back to the warp. So most of the time I like buffing Thwarting by 5k, having a 30k double striker that's going to warp something on field. And this also becomes a target for another evolve card that I run in the list.
Also, I'm not really sure if it's something I missed or not. You didn't restand the energy that you paid for Sensibine, but I don't know if it makes much of a difference in this situation.
Doesn't matter!
So, yeah, today's video is a little bit short. Jimmy got lucky seeing 3 of the unisons to be able to go super wide early on SS3 deck, which, like you guys said earlier, does need its own life to ramp itself up to a beautiful spot. Here, Trevor's kind of showing off all his high-cost cards where he just couldn't play anything. So with that being said, they did a second match, and in that second match, we got to see the SS3 deck kind of blossom more, but it was against a different deck. So stay tuned tomorrow for that particular video. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Keep in mind, there's buttons down below and on the screen while Fluff does the outro.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Let us know if there's anything you want to see in the comments down below. We're always happy to oblige that or take it in for consideration. But as always, read your cards, know your plays, let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to. And as always, Fluff out.